famed author Clive Cussler.
The hero Dirk Pitt. Pit stop. Pit stop. Pit stop. Pit stop. Pit stop is up and coming.
Pit Stop. The Peter Falk's Columbo episode. With Topper and Nancy.
Nobody's here. It's great. It's so exciting. How's your foot?
My foot is definitely a lot better. I can walk on it, I can move it, I can flex it, but still if I touch the top where the table hit, fucking hurts.
How did you hurt your foot? Like, were you installing a countertop?
It was when I was down south for my government seminar. It was like 7 a.m. I was having my coffee in the hotel room, and I was leaning on this little end table that they have, and it's like a 40-pound tabletop, 2 feet across, just like a big circle, but it's on like a wooden plinth that's about 3 inches across at the base.
Oh.
And it's held in with screws and glue, and I was leaning on it having my coffee, and it just made like a Velcro noise and tore off and landed on my foot.
So it was held in with drywall screws?
Basically.
Oh my god.
It was not well attached.
I hate to say it, but at least it was you and not like a little baby getting brained.
Yes, it was me. So yeah, there is a fracture, but the bone is still intact. It just has a dent or it's caved in. I don't know how you want to describe it. The bone is broken, but the bone is still in one piece. So it fucking hurts, but I can still use it. And they're just like,
oh, okay. Are you no boot? Or
take it easy. It'll get better eventually. So yeah, I just have like 8 to 12 weeks of ow, my foot hurts.
But no cushion boot?
Nope.
Oh, lucky you. That's good. That's really good.
If it had snapped...
Those are annoying to hear.
Yes.
Oh, and this is relevant only because it's Canada stuff. I saw this in the cup.
Ooh.
A guy who can only... We were in the car driving to... I could hear my voice. It's very distracting. We were driving to DC, and we saw this guy in a white, almost like naval uniform. He's wearing gloves and holding the Stanley Cup. And we go, holy shit, that guy has a Stanley Cup. And my kids in the back seat go, what? Huh? And we go, forget it, you're dumb. And we're looking at this guy. And it is 9 o'clock in the morning, and this guy is sauced. He's like not in the building. His whole demeanor and coloring indicated shenanigans, because it was like 9 o'clock in the morning, and he's some Navy guy, apparently, holding this Stanley Cup in Baltimore while we're on the way to DC. So we just saw him standing on a street corner. It looked official.
Usually the Stanley Cup isn't hanging out on a street corner, but I'm glad you got to see it.
He wasn't hanging out. It was obviously he was transporting it.
I know.
Hence the white gloves.
Every single picture, I just did a quick search for the guy holding the Stanley Cup, and a lot of them, it looks like our version of the golfer John Daly, but in every picture he does have white gloves.
Did look like John Daly.
Well, then, I think that's the guy. I think that's Mike Bolt.
There's just a handler?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't want to get him in trouble.
Mike Bolt is tasked with keeping Lord Stanley's cup safe.
Oh my god.
He's like the official bodyguard.
You solved a mystery I didn't even know was a mystery. Look at that.
I knew it had a guy. I wasn't sure if it was year-round or what.
That was him.
Ha! Nailed
Red
it.
hair, yeah. That was... He had a bit more rosacea that morning. Holy cow, that was him.
There's only like eight people in Canada.
Like he looked like he swallowed a canary. Because we made eye contact and he's like, uh-huh.
I got the Stanley Cup, you bet.
I don't know why he was walking around with it.
Is it on tour? We're in the finals, or the semifinals, I think.
It had to be going from a TV studio to a team, or I don't know.
Maybe.
But boy, did he look like he had it out for no good reason, because he was... The look on his face just... He looked like Dennis the Menace. He's like, I'm doing something naughty.
If anybody asks, I was in my hotel with this and not wandering around the streets of New York.
Yes, he has witnesses. Almost an alibi. And that brings us to our pit stop today.
Good segue.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to my turn for the pit stop. We will be discussing, or I will be monologuing, about Columbo. I am Nancy, and that is my co-host Topper,
Hey, everybody.
who this will be inflicted upon.
And hopefully I'll have some fun things to say and the occasional fun tangent to go off on,
Why, I think you will.
as is the job of the co-host.
Well, let me begin with the beginning of Peter Falk. He was born to married parents. That's what I meant to say. In New York, in Canarsie, nothing outstanding. He lost his eye when he was around 3 to an infection.
Yeah.
I believe it was the left eye. It wasn't a grievous injury or anything like that. It was slow, and then they had to take the eye out. So it wasn't a single horrific injury.
Does he have a glass eye?
He did have a glass eye.
I don't think I knew that. I just thought he was like
Oh, it comes up later?
squinty. I just thought that was his thing. Holy crap.
Oh, he was born in 1927. Let me make sure I got that right. Yes, he was born in 1927 and lost the eye in 1931.
He was born the same year as Don Pendleton. So there's already some weird similarities here.
And his life is wild.
Cool.
As much as I said the guy holding the Stanley Cup was shenanigans, this whole his entire life was just like, let's see what happens. He wants to join the Marines.
That was so much easier to do back then.
Oh, just you wait. Just you wait. This guy...
Listeners, Nancy is very animated right now. There are talking hands everywhere.
Well, it's very helpful for this audio medium. I'm very emotive.
Danger! Danger! My hooks are flailing wildly!
Peter Falk tried to join the Marines because the whole World War II thing. He was told, no, we've got plenty of people with 2 eyes, so piss off. So he joins the Merchant Marines, and he's signed up for a year. As soon as he signed up, he's like, the war ends as soon as the ink was dry. The war ended. So he spent a year in the Merchant Marines for nothing.
It's a good life experience.
And he said,
See the world in theory.
he didn't have to see the world. He only had the 1 eye.
He saw half the world in theory.
Only the captain has to see. Yes. Then he tried to join the CIA. He applied for the CIA. He was denied, and this was 1956. He's trying to join the CIA, but because he was in the Merchant Marines Union, which was not negotiable, if you were in the Merchant Marines, you had to join the Union. That was seen as too communist to join the CIA.
I was wondering about that.
7 out of 10 Americans were in a union at this time.
The good old days.
It was the heaviest union-soaked our country has ever been. And the CIA is like, you fucking commie.
We heard you was loading a ship without the assistance of bona fide union labor. Say it ain't so.
And this was at the time, I know during World War II, they tried to suspend unions because, they needed all these workers for the war efforts, but they also needed them to not be able to strike because there was the worry that they would strike and affect America's military readiness.
That still affects us today. So if you have a pressing job like a police officer or fireman, you can't be outside of a blaze and say, now's a good time to negotiate the salary.
Yeah.
It's a Taft-Hartley, under extreme pressures or duress is not the time for negotiations.
Essential services and whatnot.
They have bent that into evil ways.
Oh, boy, howdy.
But that's a tangent. And I know every issue is a production and working issue, but we'll put that aside.
Now I have to start working on a pit stop about communism.
Oh, that'll be brief.
Oh, yeah. Real short.
So after he's in the Merchant Marines, he goes back home to New York and decides to move to Connecticut for no good reason. He's seen the world, he's had enough in New York, so he goes to live in Hartford, Connecticut. And he's got a job there as Hartford, Connecticut assessor of engineering. He's an accountant, he's a bookkeeper of some sort. Something extra boring.
I was going to say, this doesn't seem too action-packed.
It is not action-packed. However, he takes an acting class and lies to get into the acting class. I believe it was in Bristol, Connecticut. So he went from Hartford to Bristol He couldn't say he was from Hartford because that was too blue collar. And this acting class was for professionals. But they sussed him out. And the woman who ran the acting club said, you should be a professional actor. And wrote him a letter of recommendation that got him an agent right away. So it's that letter of recommendation got him an acting agent, top notch, top foot, right off the bat.
There were like 8 actors at the time, so I think they were desperate.
He just walks in and she's like, you're not really an actor, but you should be, is what he said.
Yeah, you're a natural.
And I sent you pictures.
Yes.
It's the second email I sent you.
I was going to say, I have one email labeled do not open and one email labeled okay to open.
The okay to open one is pictures of a young Peter Falk, and he was sneaky handsome.
Yeah. Younger Falk does not look like him. Young Falk totally does. Like, somehow that's...
Then I have a young Columbo.
That's the squint and that's the smile. That's absolutely him. And dang, young Columbo, once again, doesn't look like him. Somehow the middle one...
Yes, these pictures for the listeners, there's one as him as a merchant marine where he looks like an infant.
Yep.
There's one of him on a stage. He's wearing a vest, and this is before Columbo, so he's 29 in this picture where he's wearing a vest and he's gesturing, and he's just gorgeous. Cheekbones for days. And the third picture I sent you was him as his first time as Columbo.
Huh.
And he always brought his own clothes. He would never let costumer dress him. Only for this role. When he was in any other role, he was a normal person actor. Like, he'd go into wardrobe and makeup and do... Columbo? Total drama queen. Podcat's here. Hi, Podcat. Or Lily. She's smelling the microphone.
I think she's going to sleep. Because just over here, the other cat is in her bed.
Whoa. That means war.
War or just angrily staring.
Oh, there's a lot of angry and meaningful stares at each Columbo break. Especially when there's about to be a commercial.
That is the one thing that I remembered as a kid when I was watching Columbo is how come his clothes don't fit?
There's no excuse to wear his own clothes.
Exactly. That I think he had an idea for what the character was going to be, and it was frumpy, possibly homeless.
That is exactly it. He had his vision of the character from the moment he played it, and he almost lost the role. It was supposed to go to, I want to say Bing Crosby. Yes, Bing Crosby was the first choice for Columbo, but he was firmly retired, and that's the only reason Falk got the role.
I guess if you're looking for a detective who's like non-threatening, like soft-spoken, harmless appearing, but always gets to the bottom of the crimes, I can almost kind of see like the Bing Crosby vibe of absolutely nobody scared of this detective.
Right, that could be. That it's eternal. Very like, he's like a dad or an uncle almost.
Yeah.
Columbo plays a guy that's very relatable to me, maybe because of the Northeastern accent.
Yeah, he's a non-threatening schlub who is paying attention to everything all the time.
He's wearing a raincoat in California where it famously never rains. He's always wearing his raincoat. It's never, like, too warm. It's apparently never August when a murder takes place. Because he's always got the layers. He's always wearing a suit and the overcoat. Even when he's on location, because there's episodes where he goes to Mexico or Columbo takes a cruise. Sometimes they'll have him in one frame, he'll have the Hawaiian shirt. It'll be haha. Next frame, he's not going 2 frames without that overcoat.
That is essential.
This is really something.
Wait, this was one of the first shows that had a focus group.
Sure.
And you might notice that when sometimes he just appears with a dog. He's got a basset hound named Dog.
The audience loves dogs.
For no reason, it shows up in episodes. Apparently people just loved it. So whenever there was a ratings dip, next episode, Columbo's holding his dog.
That'll bring him back.
Now, this was neither a show nor a movie. This was Saturday night on network TV, Sunday night, and it was in rotation with 4 or 5 other programs that would be made intermittently. So you wouldn't have a Columbo every week, but you might have one every month.
Sure.
Or every 6 weeks.
So is it like not like a sketch show, but it's like, it's a mystery show, and they just show like different...
They'll show different mystery hours. It was a 2-hour block, so it was an hour and 40 minutes they had to fill. because there were less commercials back then. Now 2 hours of TV is 22 minutes.
So they would just like cycle through whatever they had available.
Peter Falk definitely tried to lead from behind. From the first day on the set in 1968, and the first episode, if you want to call it that, was in 1968, though the official first episode was 1971. The 1968 episode is the televised teleplay of the stage show that the whole Columbo character was based on. Prescription for Murder, where a psychiatrist has his mistress kill his wife and then kill herself. Everything in these shows is wealth coded, so we're leering in as the viewer at these sneaky or victimized or pathetic, greedy, wealthy people in their mansions, and we see the insides of the mansions, and the camera pans slowly, so you see all the decor. It is the lifestyles of the rich and famous, or cribs, or I don't know what the kids have now on the TikTok. There was that before it was any of those things.
Nice.
Let's see how the rich people live.
And then watch them die and go to jail.
In their moral ambiguity. And the frumpled look was Peter Falk's idea. He was supposed to be neat as a pin. So good for him for bringing the trench coat.
I would imagine that is how they want cops portrayed on television, because this would be in the days of like Adam 12 and all the other cop shows on television that were sponsored and paid for and had script input from major police departments.
Well, the trench coat certainly, I don't know if it's the cat catching the mouse or the mouse catching the cat here. It is certainly emblematic of a hardened police officer.
Oh yeah, definitely. I feel like in media from back then, you had the cops in blue and you had your detectives wearing like a suit and a raincoat or a trench coat or something, but they were still like done up nicely. They were impressive looking.
Yes.
Columbo was less so.
Columbo's more McGruff the crime dog than secret agent.
Excellent.
He could be why McGruff the crime dog wore a trench coat, or why Robert Stack wore a trench coat in Unsolved Mysteries to convey gentle authority, or just to scare the shit out of you. Robert Stack was terrifying. But the last thing on Falk, he was quite the ladies' man. He played professional chess and won awards for painting. He was a man of extraordinary hobbies.
I do love finding that out about famous people and how most famous characters are so different from who they are in real life. Last year when I was down in Vancouver for a week with my dad, we watched a lot of movies. There's only like 4 channels they actually liked, and one of them was always playing movies from the 1930s and 40s. So I saw a lot of Edward G. Robinson films.
Okay.
People might know him as the person who invented the merci voice for gangsters.
Reinvented that voice.
He made that up whole cloth for the film Little Caesar.
Gangsters took that voice up.
Yeah. No, he invented that. But I was reading up on Edward G. Robinson, like famous tough guy, famous gangster, famous hustler in all these movies. And he is like one of the most highly esteemed art collectors in Hollywood, to the point where like other art collectors and art critics and art historians will go to him for information because he knows so much.
Uncle-in-law like that about guinea pigs.
Yeah.
If you knew him in his highly professional life, that was very proper, extremely proper. You wouldn't know he has like the largest collection of guinea pig art in the world. People are full of surprises.
Yes.
Everyone is. Now, the world of Peter Falk and Columbo, very morally ambiguous. I'm going to jump to some of the guest stars now, and there are numerous.
Oh, I would imagine.
There's guest star Tyne Daly. Now,
I know the name.
Let me set the stage for you. The first 20 minutes, you never see Peter Falk. Columbo doesn't have Columbo for the first 20 minutes. We just have the murder, and it's an alibi being established, a motive being set. You're witnessing all of those components, so you know who the murderer is before you see the detective, which was a complete turnaround for storytelling. The 70s and 80s were shocked. That's why there was only one episode in 1968. The 60s could not handle Columbo. It was too shocking. So you know the bad guy first, or you think. And they always leave some delicate detail, like a clue that's going to be left behind, and then bad guy goes and gets it and resolves that little twitch before it begins. So the viewer thinks, oh, I'm so smart, they left a clue behind. But right before they go to commercial break, they always like, oh no, I didn't forget my umbrella. I'll grab that now. Or let me pick up my bag or this note, whatever it is. Whatever clue it's going to be left behind, plot twist won't be left behind. In episode 61, Tyne Daly co-stars as a murderess. You're not sure she's a murderess because you think it's the stepson that blew up the dad. She did blow up his dad, but he didn't know his dad was already dead because stepmom murdered him. So instead of blowing dad up, he blew up dad and the alive gardener.
Okay.
So the bomb he planted wasn't actually committing a murder in Columbo's world because he only killed the gardener. So the only one arrested in that episode was the stepmom because she murdered the wealthy guy.
Okay, well that's not perfect detective work there.
It is. It leaves a little wanting.
So, wait, was there murderous intent from the son? Like, he did make a bomb and plant it on purpose? Like
He did.
So he was trying to kill someone.
Stepson was trying to murder their father. He plants a bomb in the limousine.
Okay.
And the gardener says, I'll bring the car around, not knowing that guy's in the trunk. As soon as Gardner starts the car, kaboom.
Nice.
So he was just missing that morning, and then he was pink misted. Which, as a burial, not a bad idea.
Everybody knows accidental murders don't count.
I've been saying that for years. Thank you for finally coming along to my side. This show was famously on before the internet, but it did rely on gadgets of the time. This was a gadget gawking episode. Also, magician heavy show. There were 2 murdering magicians in the entire Columbo series.
Nice.
They scraped that trope twice.
I feel like that's really fun for a whodunit, or at least a howdunit, because you can have a lot more fun with magicians playing tricks on the detective. What are you doing?
You really can?
Stop it. Sit down. Cat.
Pseudoscience was a big feature in this series. Subliminal messaging was once the murder weapon.
Cool.
And it also established an alibi. You did see Robert Culp. He was here the whole time.
Hypnosis.
And they had this robo phone machine, which we now understand to be a robocaller.
Mm-hmm.
And this was featured in 2 episodes because it was so high-tech and fascinating. Once was to establish an alibi. A call was recorded. Hey, Marge, I'm on my way home. No, I'm not. I'm right behind you. Stabby, stabby, stabby.
Stab, stab, stab.
Marge is dead. In another episode, it was a robocall. Guy answers the phone on the other end. And the word Rosebud is shouted. And the pit bulls in the background, they weren't pit bulls, they were 1970s pit bulls. What were those dogs? Very scary.
Rotties, boxers.
Big scary dogs were given the phrase pit bull, and they ripped their
Dobermans.
A victim to shreds. So it was a trigger word used by the robocalling device that we all dread now.
Yeah.
But was high-tech and very fascinating back then.
That one's pretty cool. So was the guy killed by his own dogs, or did somebody plant trained dogs somewhere?
That would be great.
Like, hides the dogs in the walls until they hear the word pit bull.
That would be fascinating and needlessly complicated. I can't believe they didn't do that. There was an author combo, and he said, run by my house to pick up a bottle of wine or a manuscript or something.
Oh,
so
okay.
he calls his house to set off the dogs.
So he lured him.
Yes, so he doesn't have to share his book royalties.
Yeah, we're jerks that way.
And the list of, in a pre-Google world, this show had to be so aggravating because it's that guy. Oh no, it's that guy. The list of guest stars on this show is staggering. Johnny Cash. They have him jump out of a plane.
Sweet.
It's his first acting role. William Shatner.
My mind went Johnny Carson for a second. I thought, wow, that's weird. Then I realized, no, it's Johnny Cash. Wow, that's even weirder.
Yes.
Why did they push the man in black out of an airplane?
His episode was called Black Swan. And he kind of had a mullet.
Yeah.
Because this was, even though it was wealth-coded, people still look like people. Their hair was not perfect. Their teeth were not perfect. Everyone still looked a little sloppy.
I have to look up Johnny Cash Columbo now. Oh yeah, there's him sitting on in an airplane seat. Oh, he was in 2 episodes, I think. Oh yeah, Swan Song with Johnny Cash. Cool.
But it really felt voyeuristic because it wasn't like Dynasty, which was sort of on the air in the same time period where people looked model perfect. Or Dallas, much the same thing. People looked real on Columbo.
Weird.
They looked made up and pretty. They looked like people you could see on the street. Even Jamie Lee Curtis was a young nurse in the show. And you're like, oh, that doesn't... Or Katie Segal, also a young nurse. There was a variety of things women could be back then.
Sexy secretaries, sexy nurses, it's wide open.
It is wide open. Jeff Goldblum got his tag card.
Sexy airline stewardess.
In the second email... Let me quiet the dogs just one moment. Open the second email.
Okay.
And picture number 3 is Jeff Goldblum's first...
Holy crap, it is.
Now, listeners, Jeff Goldblum doesn't have a speaking role. He's a wildly gesturing role, which is how he got his side card.
But boy, does that look like him.
He's just in the background pointing at something.
Yeah, he seems to be in some sort of mob of protesters, and everybody is swinging these, like, immaculate, perfect signs.
Yes, and
he's just standing there like, God, come on.
In that episode, Columbo joins the protest to figure out what it's about, because he has to know why people are protesting the mega millionaire in the building. So he grabs a sign, he's like, hey, what are we doing? What's the word on the street, Joe? You know, cool lingo like that.
Yeah, my friend, I've been there and back. You know, I see the way you're sitting here, and I see the way you got your hand around that little shoe, and that's all I need. I know your whole story.
Huh? You do?
And a hippie guy tells him, you know, this man is killing whales, or something very 1970s.
Damn hippies.
And he's like, okay, thanks. And the guy offers him a joint, and Peter Falk's like, I'm the fuzz, man, I'm the fuzz. And that's part of what made him so likable. Anytime he saw something vaguely illegal, like the guy with the joint, or the murderess being able to get dressed by herself, like he made allowances. He wasn't the cops that are by the book and only by the book. He would have a whiskey with the murderer after he found out this guy was a murderer. He's like, oh, this is very expensive? Oh, yes, I'll have some, thank you.
Well, he has to maintain the charade until he can prove it? Or is this like...
No, sometimes
it's after he confesses?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
There is one episode with, Donald Pleasance. And this is a note for the times. Donald Pleasance was in The Great Escape. He plays the forger who goes blind. Have you seen The Great Escape?
I have not seen that since I was a kid.
Okay, pretty famous movie. In The Great Escape, they are trying to escape a Nazi POW camp, and they're tunneling out. Once they get out, they need passports. The character that makes the passports does so many of them, he goes blind, because he's forging them from top to bottom out of thin air. And that actor was Donald Pleasance, which was crazy because Donald Pleasance was a POW in World War II, in a Nazi camp.
Damn.
So that was a heck of a role for him to play.
Yeah, no kidding.
But he plays a very sophisticated winery operator who has to off his brother from a different mother, so he's not that close.
You don't seem very upset. We were not close.
There's always, if you have to kill a sibling, they always kind of make it a stepbrother, stepsister, just to make it a little bit more palatable. And Donald Pleasance is a wine snob, and after he confesses, after an improbable and entirely too complicated wine sommelier mystery was solved, the wine had gotten too warm at a restaurant.
So they had to drink it.
So he didn't drink it. But he was like, sir, this wine was from your wine cave. So you must have set the thermostat to 99 degrees. Because it is your wine that is turned. Dun dun dun. That's how he was caught. He was allowed to finish his wine in the police car on the way to the precinct.
Nice. Yeah, my first thought when I hear that name is he played the president in Escape from New York.
Oh, yes.
With Kurt Russell. Love that movie.
He was the boy. Donald Pleasance was in all.
He was in a lot of stuff.
He was in a lot of things. The first official episode, because the 1968 was considered a teleplay by people who like to rewrite history.
Mm-hmm.
Not me. It aired. It was a Columbo show. But the first official episode was 1971, and it was directed by Steven Spielberg and written by Stephen Bochco.
Holy crap.
Even then,
they were onto something.
Peter Falk was like, this guy, Spiely here? Because he called him Spiely. He's like, this guy's too good for us.
What the hell's he doing down here?
And then in another episode where there's a boy genius, he's named Steven Spielberg because Peter Falk thought Steven Spielberg was so brilliant. When a brilliant character came up, he was like, oh, name him Spielberg. That guy's smart.
That rules.
Yes, so there's an episode starring Robbie the Robot.
From Lost in Space?
From Lost in Space, that Robbie the Robot. They had a robot guest star.
Nice.
Wait.
Danger! Danger!
You have to love that. That was the one with the boy genius, Steven Spielberg, which was a nod to the creative genius of Steven Spielberg, the adult. The robot did not murder anybody.
Huh.
I believe it did establish an alibi. So it was an accessory after the fact.
Well, fine.
Also, not arrested. Or shot.
So who was the murderer in that one? Was that the boy genius? Or is he being framed?
The boy genius was just being groomed. He wasn't a part of the murder at all.
Hooray!
He was just passing by, narratively.
Well, you have to have some red herrings.
Oh, and you have to have some red heads. Katie Seagal got her first acting job on the show.
Sweet.
So what does this mean for us and our many fans?
And some others. Robert Culp was a big deal. A big stage actor back then. He was in multiple episodes. Dean Stockwell was my favorite in Quantum Leap.
Yes.
And I sent you a picture of him. He's number one.
I did see that picture of 3 Dean Stockwells.
As the third one is the Columbo Stockwell. The first one is a Quantum Leap Stockwell.
Yeah, definitely. He's wearing a silver jacket. No other show would have him.
In one of the Magicians episodes, there was a guillotine. This episode was Columbo goes to the guillotine. In order to catch the killer, Columbo's playing around with him backstage, and he knows the trick is rigged. So he knows the magician unrigged the trick of the guillotine, which during a performance killed a James Randi type. This magician was being plagued by skeptics.
Oh.
So a guy that was trying to ruin him and tell the world that his magic is not real volunteers to go on stage for the guillotine act. The guillotine somehow works, and the guy's beheaded on stage. Oh, horrible stage accident.
That is also an X-Files episode.
Oh my god.
Like word for
There
word.
is nothing new. There is nothing new.
That has to be an homage.
And Columbo, being a professional policeman, goes backstage investigating this accident, lies down in the guillotine. Going like, how is this supposed to work? So,
yeah, pull that string.
The bad guy wants to decapitate him. Now's a chance. But Columbo sets off the machine anyway.
Of course he does.
Well, he does in such a way to prove that the machine is in working order. Therefore, Mr. Magician, you are the bad guy. However, that is a lot of cojones or idiocy to put your head beneath a guillotine blade that may or may not work.
Yeah, I'm not sure I've ever been that confident in anything.
Anything. Like, speaking of actors who get to play against their type, Rip Torn.
Think like a pirate. I want a man with a tattoo on his dick.
Was a murderer in episode 59, Death Hits the Jackpot.
Sweet.
Where he murders his wife after winning the lottery.
Young people would know him as the guy in charge of the Men in Black.
Oh, is that what young people would know him from?
Well, young...
That 1999 film?
Young-ish? I'm not sure. Well, okay. In theory, young people do listen to our show because my daughter told all of her friends that my dad does this podcast. So every now and then I'll be at the school or her friends will come over.
Oh my God.
Or something will happen and her friends will be like, oh, by the way, love Cussler Hustlers. I'm like, no, you don't. They're like, no, I don't, but still.
People can't know about this?
I think they listened to a few episodes ironically.
All the time, Peter Falk is playing Columbo. He's being loosely married to one of two women. And his second wife was apparently a beast. And there's a term called Falk's Law now. So if you have a child that's an adult, they can access you if you're bedridden or in need of care. They can't, the stepmom or stepfather can't be evil and keep you away from the parent.
Okay. That's good, I think.
That is good. You don't want an evil stepmom coming in and rewriting the will.
Yeah.
But sometimes that happens. Peter Falk left the world after a slow illness. It wasn't murder, but there was some will shenanigans, and that's why there's Falk's Law.
Wow.
Like, he even ends with like a mystery quality to him.
Apparently.
The whole Columbo show and the aesthetic was just to gawk and be self-righteous because you're better than those rich, greedy people that are killing their brothers or sisters or mean old moms for the inheritance, or like William Shatner, who was also on a plane, threw his wife out of a plane, then parachuted out to establish an alibi someplace else. They used the plane thing a bunch.
Apparently.
Kind of got repetitive.
This was the 1970s, so most people also hadn't been on planes before.
Oh my God, you're right. You were right. It was tourism for planes.
Rich people love their planes. And then air travel was for everyone, and now it's back for being too damn expensive.
In one episode, you'd never see Columbo until the last third, because he was on strike because he wanted to direct Columbo's.
Nice.
So Architect for Murder, the first 3/4 of that episode, you only see the back of a stuntman's head, and his voice is VR'd over.
Nice.
One episode was particularly wonderful because two spies meet at an amusement park to establish an alibi. Not alibi is the wrong word. They were trying to lay low, these two spies.
At an amusement park.
So they go to the shoot 'em up booth, and they're both sharpshooters. So when Columbo goes to see where they were, the guy at the carnival booth goes, "Yo, those two guys shot everything up."
Stop being memorable.
He never has a failing memory. And the person who has to be reached is always reached on the other end of the phone. Columbo calls the casino. What casino? Doesn't matter. It's the casino. He calls up to see if John Doe was there. The guy answering the phone says, yeah, he was here. Not only that, he was here with a dame that had black hair and she was tall and a nice wife.
In your words, speed of plot. We don't have time to do lots of interviews. This ain't Law and Order.
And there are a certain set of people who think Columbo was a genius detective. No. If you watch the shows, people just tell him what they did.
They kind of fall backwards into his trap.
Yes, exactly. But watching it now, seeing the old decor, seeing what was sought after, what people desperately wanted because that's what the wealthy people had. The wall-to-wall carpeted bathroom, the fish in the swimming pool, things nobody would want now. It's very interesting. The robocalling machine.
I miss carpeted bathrooms.
I guess autopilot you want, but not if your husband's cheating on you. And if your husband's cheating on you and in the music and acting industry, you just write your will now.
You're not long for this world.
And the most impressive guest starring was Gwyneth Paltrow, because she was
wow
technically there, I guess, because Blythe Danner had a cameo and she was pregnant.
That's cheating. I like it though.
She's the most current cameo.
Yeah, one of your pictures here is Ian McShane.
Yes, Ian McShane was in an episode. Jeff Goldblum, Jamie Lee Curtis, Ed Begley Jr. And infant Martin Sheen plays a doctor.
Yeah, that doesn't look like him at all. Wow.
What is it? He's so slender.
Yeah.
In that episode, he's wearing like a silk pinstripe shirt, and he just looks like a prototype of a human.
Back in Martin Sheen's twink days.
I think I could circle my fingers around his waist. He was gorgeous, like he was chiseled. you can see why he became famous. You look in the mirror, if you're Martin Sheen, you go, oh, I'm so pretty I can kiss myself. Like, he was so handsome.
It's all bone structure, those bastards.
And Pat Morita was in an episode.
Sweet.
Robert Loggia.
I'm Robert Loggia.
It's just the one man. He looks like he's gonna die every time he hits that note.
That was Loggia's thing. He was like that for like 30 consecutive years.
Yeah.
He's a physical marvel.
Shatner. Don Amici, who's a name I know.
Mm-hmm.
I saw the episode with Don Amici.
Crap. What was he in? I know
It's
that
a name
name.
you know too. I could see in your eyes. You can't name anything he's in. Don't Google.
Well, I have
I'll
to.
just Googling.
I have to because I'm picturing him with like a straw hat. Cocoon, that's what it was. Also Trading Places, apparently.
Oh, Cocoon.
But Cocoon and Trading Places are what I definitely know him from. I've seen Trading Places like 20 times with my dad. And then we get into like 80 movies I haven't seen. Like, wow, he was in movies in the 30s.
Whoa.
Good for him.
Leslie Nielsen plays a young bachelor. And he wasn't funny at all. I remember watching that as a child, after watching the comedy detective movies he was in. Naked Gun 2.5. I almost died during Naked Gun 2.5. I was laughing so much as a child. And to see Leslie Nielsen play a non-funny role, I was not amused at age 11. I saw Leslie Nielsen. He didn't come through. I kind of hated Columbo for a day.
I was betrayed. Yeah, that is a weird and fabulous piece of history. Obviously, he's huge up here because Leslie Nielsen is Canadian, and he was making a go of it as like a serious actor. And
for many years, he was a serious actor.
And I forget how he ended up in Airplane, but he was in Airplane just being the straight man. And him being the straight man in a comedy was like his gateway into the world of comedy. Him and Gene Wilder, because Gene Wilder was like a serious actor. He was a stage actor. He took everything seriously, and I forget what his first comedy role was, but he played the straight man in that. And then it was like 2 or 3 things later, he was Willy Wonka, where he's,
which was terrifying,
serious as cancer in a funny movie. And that was his way. And after that, it was Blazing Saddles and all the stuff he did with Richard Pryor.
Blazing Saddles was perfect.
Some people with like that absolute serious deadpan, but they still have the acting skill and perfect timing. That transfers really well to comedy if you got the right people to bounce off of.
Yes, I think Benedict Cumberbatch can do that now.
I can see that. He doesn't strike me as a very funny person, but I haven't seen many interviews with him.
He can be straight no matter what.
Yeah. He should, I feel he could make the jump to comedy, and I would believe it, because he's so serious looking. But I just want to see him just wacky, goofy shit happening to Benedict Cumberbatch.
I know, the last thing I saw him in, he was a Russian prisoner with a shaved head. It was very serious. Very low comedy in Russian prisons.
Too
Apparently.
serious. Very too serious.
Other guest stars for Columbo include Judd Hirsch, Little Richard. I would have sent you a picture, but it's Little Richard. He always looked like Little Richard. Him doing a cameo as anybody else, hilarious. Kim Cattrall was a sex kitten, but 19, so you look at the picture and you kind of go, I'm uncomfortable.
A little bit, yeah. Especially since in that picture she's like wearing a house coat and hugging a teddy bear.
Or Regina Teon. That's just what people did back then.
Okay.
Regina Te is a reference to a commercial that was commonly on Columbo, or featured during the run of Columbo, along with Love's Baby Soft, which I'm sure you've seen the ad. There's nothing sexier than a baby.
Yeah, that didn't age well. Yeah.
Along with carpets and bathrooms. and fish and pools.
And smoking being good for you.
Smoking was everywhere. Apparently, the fidgeting and all the movements he did were his. Peter Falk invented the bumblingness of it. Like when he'd go through his jacket and find the grocery list, it might actually be a grocery list.
Look what I got here. I know I brought it.
You're searching, but you'll never find it.
Oh, here we are.
Yes. And he would do that to throw off the actors playing opposite him, so they would look surprised and annoyed. He really loved annoying people.
Excellent.
And making them impatient. Apparently he made Leslie Nielsen very pissed off during his episode. And you could see it in the acting, like Leslie Nielsen's this towering man holding this immaculate head of hair. Apparently he was never young because his hair was silver and he was 28.
His hair was bone white back then.
He's trying to like go home and settle his business or whatever serious thing he has to do, and this detective is taking up his time, and he looks legitimately annoyed. It's because he was.
Excellent. Now that's method acting.
I don't know if it's method acting, if it's the other actors doing it to you. I think it's a method, not the method.
In internet circles, that's known as enforced method acting, where somebody makes you act method.
Oh, like in The Shining when they almost broke that woman.
I was going to say the big two examples are The Shining and Hitchcock, where Hitchcock would just fuck with his actors until they broke down. They were like, good, film that.
Laws were a very nebulous thing back then.
There's no law that says
OSHA?
The director can't fuck with you. There's just, morals and ethics, which hadn't been invented yet.
Definitely slippery, which was reflected by the way Columbo treated the people after they confessed. Sometimes he'd be like, let's stop and have a good meal first. You wouldn't see that, but that would be the last sentence. Or with Don Pleasance, they share a bottle of wine on the way to the station. Or another one where a woman murders her brother for the inheritance because she doesn't want to share. But she's in her negligee. And he's all befuddled and embarrassed. He's like, I'll let you get dressed, ma'am. Because he's a gentleman. And if there was ever a woman showing too much skin, or somebody was playing a celebrity that he was supposed to be impressed with, he would turn beet red and look embarrassed. Apparently that tested very well, because they put naked women like sort of near him as much as they could.
Also good for ratings.
They'd go into an art class because they'd have to interview the professor, and a very strategically laid nude model, blocked by easels and stuff, would be in the forefront with a very embarrassed Peter Falk, and he would look delightfully pink.
Excellent.
Like a Vienna sausage. This might be one of the longest running shows. I believe The Simpsons is going to beat it, or has beaten it, but if you count the first episode being in 1968, the last episode, 1994.
Nice.
So that's a heck of a run. There were 67 episodes. He got $1 million an episode after the first 25.
Damn.
So he had money.
That's not even that many episodes. That's not even 3 seasons of The Simpsons. But I guess they were going for quality. Because it sounds like every single episode had a major guest star.
They had a major guest star. They had to rent a palatial estate. They did double up on the Rolls Royce. There was a Rolls Royce that belonged to an estate that looked surprisingly familiar from estate to estate to estate. Like, I can name the dings on the door panel.
Like the hotel room in Supernatural.
They used one Rolls Royce to death. And let me see what else I've got. There were a lot of, there would have been more Columbos, but Peter Falk was a perfectionist. And the older he got, and possibly the pre-dementia he got more difficult to work with. He wanted every frame to be perfect. So production did slow down after the years. So it started off with a bang with season 1, episode 1, and then we could jump to season 2 where they have 9 or 10 episodes. By the end, it's a 3-episode season.
Wow. And it sounds like large gaps in between the seasons too if it went until the 90s.
Yes, it was more seasonal TV, so you could have, towards the end, in the 90s, there would be a season every other year. You get a 92 season, or they'd stretch it, drop it in January or December, so it could count for like 91, 92.
Mm-hmm.
And Peter Falk passed away at the age... Peter Falk passed away in 2011, which is fairly recently.
Mm-hmm. For being born in the 1920s, wow.
Yeah, 1927. And that is all I have on Peter Falk and Columbo for today. I know there's so much more. Everyone, go watch a Columbo, go time travel. I'm not sure you'll like it, but it's indicative to how we got here, to why people trust the police, to why they think detectives are brilliant, why we look to police as father figures. In your case, it was because your dad was a policeman. Yes. So that's valid.
I just want to add my one fun fact about Columbo, which I believe I've sprung on you and I've sprung on a lot of people at one time or another, and that is how big he is in Japan.
Oh, yes, he is. During the run of Columbo, the State Department had to ask Peter Falk to promise Romania that more episodes were going to come out because there was some kind of social unrest.
Wow.
And that quelled it in a small district.
Jesus.
So the State Department, I would have been like, you motherfuckers didn't let me in the CIA because I was a commie in a union.
And now the State Department comes to me, asked me a favor.
That's exactly. Oh, in these episodes, some of them are so cringe. It's like, you were bad and your victim is now here to witness it. There was one where he made up a whole country in Africa, and the African leader is going to be assassinated by his right-hand man, and he outs him to the leader. And it's so Scooby-Doo and so badly written.
Well, they can't all be gold.
It's a must-see. It's bad writing. It's racist. It's classist. It's sexist. It's all of them.
Oof.
It's every problem you could throw at it.
Well, it was a different time back then, etc., etc.
It was a different time with bad customs.
Yeah.
But we all get better, and our hair all looks fabulous now.
Especially mine.
Yes, yours is fantastic. And we never see Mrs. Columbo. There is a Mrs. Columbo series, but that is not really connected to Columbo. Mr. and Mrs. Columbo never seen on screen together. Mrs. Columbo has a moving set of targets as character traits. She takes care of a child. We don't know if it's his child. Sometimes she's got to stay home to babysit the children. Unclear if they're hers or her sister's. Sometimes she's a great cook. Sometimes she's a horrible cook. Oh, the missus, she never cooks. It's like they were on too many martini lunches to remember what they wrote about Mrs. Columbo in the previous episode. So whatever they had today is good enough.
Or at some point they just realize that maybe he doesn't even have a wife, but he does have to make this shit up in order to make conversation with his suspects.
That is never implied.
I'm reading too much into this.
He is supposed to be the crumpled, rumpled, just one more thing. And the just one more thing is, you're going to tell me or show me what you did. Excellent police work.
Yeah, it really seems like the one more thing when he asks him one more question. If they could just keep their mouth shut, they might get away with it.
Yes, there is a surprising amount of need to confess actual details. Like, if you murdered somebody and leaving the keys on the counter is pivotal to your plan, just say, no, those aren't my keys. Or I just put them there. But come up with something. Lie. If you can murder, have better lying on the spot skills.
Yes.
Just saying, if you're gonna. In the 80s, that wasn't a thing. And the podcast is eating your microphone?
Well, she's not really eating the microphone, but in order to stay in this spot, she has to sink all of her claws into my wrist.
Oh, comfortable.
Super. And she's purring and her tail's going crazy.
So when the table dropped on your foot, did the entire hotel staff pucker in panic?
No. When I came down and I told them about what had happened, the response was like, "Oh no, I'm sorry. I'll let the day manager know, and we will see how this affects your damage deposit."
What?
I wasn't telling you because I was going to pay for the table. I was telling you because I'm limping now. But a week after I got home, I got a somewhat more panicked email from the hotel chain. I was very apologetic and offering to make it right. And I'm like, I'm not sure how you plan on making it right. I haven't even responded to that yet. But
money. Take money from them.
Apparently, it's worked its way through the system, and I can get some free hotel rooms now.
Ask for more. They'll give you more. So your outrage include X-rays in the email back.
Yes.
Just try.
I have to get a copy of my X-rays. I'll frame them.
Well, hopefully they don't charge you too much.
Look at my stupid foot. Oh no, it's free.
Oh, I knew that. I was just rubbing it in to our American listeners.
Sorry, eh?
And I will let you get back to work, even though you supposedly have an office job with no meetings.
I said I don't think I had any meetings today, and I was in meetings from 9:30 to 11:30. So sometimes they just happen.
I understand. I overhear some meetings with Jay, and it seems like they're just counting toothpicks. What are they doing during meetings? Anybody get any work done?
There's a reason we have so much knitting in our house is because my wife has to be in lots and lots of meetings, but she very rarely has to do much beyond be there. And you can knit on a Zoom call very effectively.
I can't. She can. That's a great skill. So everyone, that was your Columbo pit stop.
And now I'm already thinking that I have to do one on my favorite cop show, Due South.
Due south. I had a girlfriend she had such a crush on the guy with the red coat.
Yes.
Who was in the poster in Due South.
Paul Gross.
But she didn't have cable, so she just had the poster. And that's what my entire view of Mounties is that poster.
I remember from way back during like the first season or two of this show, the ads for Due South were just 30 seconds of women swooning and like touching themselves while watching Paul Gross like help an old lady across the street.
Oh.
That was the ad for the show, was how hot he was.
It was the 90s, right? So it was
93 to 97? Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, that was the dawn of the female gaze. We had the Pepsi commercial with the guy drinking Pepsi and the women in the office building catcalling him.
This was almost the same ad, yeah.
So he was a construction worker? Lucky something. Lucky Santino? Lucky Abs? I remember his first name was the female Lear in camera form was new. And we can't do it anymore. And it kind of miffed. Because the guys had so long to be creepy.
Bring that
and
back.
now that I'm an old woman, I can be creepy. I can't, because it's, outwardly creepy.
Yeah.
I can't just say feminism.
Yeah, once you're past a certain age, you're not supposed to have a leer anymore.
Oh, that Pepsi commercial with the lucky guy was a leer. And I don't know if you've caught the fans of Outlander. That poor star of that show has to go with a hiding.
Yeah, we got through like half a season of Outlander, I think. Wasn't for us, but there was quite the online furor over it.
Apparently, women like men in kilts. I think that's very subjective, like a Woody Allen wouldn't look great in a kilt.
But it shows off our fabulous legs.
You know who has good legs? And I think he's Canadian. Will Sosa.
Huh. Is he Canadian?
He has calves that I've never seen. He's an ox of a man.
He does have a sense of humor I could perhaps see as Canadian. Yeah, he's Canadian. Wow. Good for him.
He's in Loudermilk. He's delightful.
I see that. Yeah, that's his first entry here.
The first episode of Loudermilk is terrible. If you go to the second episode, it's a delightful show.
Also, as a Canadian, as with all Canadians, he had a guest role on The X-Files.
How does everything lead back to The X-Files?
Well, The X-Files are very big in this house. We have like the complete DVD set, and we've seen the whole thing twice. And it's fun for us because every Canadian actor, and there aren't that many, are in The X-Files at least twice as different people. Like, you're a murder victim in season 2 and you're the murderer in season 5, and we just hope people won't notice.
That is very Columbo-esque. I was allowed to go on a date once a week. So I'd go on a date with Jay on Saturday nights, so I could stay home on Friday nights to watch The X-Files, which I was going to do anyway, but with that rule, I could just say to Jay, I can't see Friday nights. And I remember seeing the dad from Malcolm in the Middle.
Ooh, that was a good one.
The X-Files. I'm like, oh, that's the dad from Malcolm in the Middle. He's playing a guy who's going to explode. He's really acting hardcore. An alien was going to burst forth from him if the car slowed down, something like that. So a very intense scene.
Yeah, that one was the ultra-low frequency waves, and he had to keep heading away from the source of the waves. Otherwise, his brain would explode. We do love that episode, just because he's awesome in it, and almost the entire episode is him and Mulder in a car driving and just acting their balls off.
It was a fantastic episode.
Yes.
But I saw it after that actor was Malcolm in the Middle's dad. And before he was on Breaking Bad.
That's where he made the jump from serious to comedy.
Was an intense display of acting, which never occurred on Columbo. And that's your just one more thing. Intense acting never happened.
We have no room for intensity.
It was all very comforting.
He's like the male Agatha Christie.
Yes, it's like a warm blanket of murder.
The name of the episode. All right.
Okay.
All right. Goodbye, everybody.
I had psoriasis on the back of my ears like crazy.
Columbo's on the scene with a twinkle in his eye. The mystery unravels. What a clever guy. With a stumble and a mumble, he's seen all this before. Got a question for the culprit. Just one more with that old coat swinging, a cigar in hand. He's the jazz detective with a big bandstand. This has been Cussler. Go have right things here. Hustlers, you better believe it, you must. The Columbo episode. Your hosts have been Topper and Nancy. Find us on Twitter and Instagram at Cussler. Hustler.